and everybody here is pretty much family. We've been doing these things together for quite a while now. Me and Mike have been married now. This summer will be 7 years. So God is a good God. Thank you. And this pandemic that we've all been facing, the multiple levels of it, from, the actual global health crisis to the racial crisis, and then the economic crisis that it has also brought on for a lot of people, really is in its third year now. We thank God for our health developments, from all the vaccines and the boosters and so on. We thank God for so many different ways that God has shown up and showed out and allowed us to combat this situation. But the pandemic took its toll. Almost 3 years, it took its toll on all of us in a variety of ways. I know one of the major ways me and Mike were affected is, as you might already can discern, I am a hyper extrovert personality. so having to be housebound and things of that nature for several months was definitely probably burdening Mike tremendously with having to be, multiple things. Because in our lives, you as a marriage, you create your own culture. And that was something that me and Mike talked a lot about, because I'm African American and he was born here in the States, but he's of Ghana African background. So culture, racially, on more levels than one, is a serious conversation for us ongoing. And so when we first got together, he explained to me the value of us creating our own culture as a couple, especially when it related to our families, our friend circles, and so on and so on. So when we got shifted into the intense level of this pandemic, it really made those foundational principles of our understanding about culture tremendously important, because Mike and I are very much independent individuals. We have our lives together, and then we have our lives within the larger communities that we belong to. So once we had to be even more focused on in each other per se, then you realize, just like your unique personalities. He's more of an introvert, as you can see, and I'm more of, like I said, not just an extrovert, but hyper extrovert. I have like 6 siblings, so when you grow up in a house with a lot of kids, everybody's talking and at the same time, that type of thing. So we had to, I had to tone it down, which was not easy for me because it wasn't my nature. You know what I mean? I had to respect his personal boundaries and his need for his alone time, in addition to our collective group time as a couple. This is also my second marriage, as I've already shared in previous Agape events. So when you've been previously married, you can sometimes come to the table with certain post-traumatic traumas, and a situation like the pandemic really can start to awaken some of those traumas. And you should do a good amount of self-work. I was single 10 years between the first experience and this real life marriage type of thing. But other people are bored as well, and social media becomes the platform for a lot of crazy things. And I'm trying to, yeah, the my ex-husband surfaced on social media during that season, and I wasn't pleased about that. You know what I mean? Because as men have a tendency to be, you know, they have a tendency to approach the other men. You know what I mean? So, like territorial or whatever. So then that became a dynamic that we had to deal with. And Mike is a substance abuse counselor by profession, so he is much better at dealing with irate personalities than I am. I just want to shut it down. You know what I mean? And he was conscious of the fact that, like my mom is still alive, and like I said, I have a lot of siblings and things. So, there might be a crossroads in life where we all might be at the same funeral. You know what I mean? That type of thing. And he said he was much better at being able to deal with that in a mature fashion, I, on the other hand, is like, okay, that season of life is over. Let's kind of like let it go and move on.
Okay, that was interesting. I didn't know some of all of that was going on. I learn a lot when I do these shows. For me, surviving the pandemic was crucial in that, when we think about the creation of time, when we think about, the beginning of time, God created man and women, And when you look at that perspective, you're thinking, okay, here's man, here's women, they're pushed in this perspective, and they have to get along. But the key thing that helped me to get through this moment was that in between man and women, you had God. You had a relationship with God that was supposed to intervene that relationship. And through that partnership, aligning themselves with God allowed them to prosper. And during the pandemic, one of the things that the devil tried to make us feel is that we're stuck in the house by ourselves and we have to get along. It's just me and you, and we have to survive this crisis. And allowing God to intervene in the ways that he did was what allowed me personally to get through. One of those ways was therapy. We both had therapists that we were able to talk with and help us to communicate, because communication was so important during those times, because we spent more time together. Gyms were closed, restaurants were closed, we were on lockdown. And the things that I kind of used to walk away as a man from a relationship when things get heated, I now had to stay there and be in the hot spot, So learning how to be present, communicate and listen was crucial. And God sent many things to help, me to survive that and help Isis as well. And she had great therapists that she worked with, talked with, and it's something that's not talked about in our community, being mentally healthy and mentally aware. So that was one thing that really helped. Another thing that helped was allowing myself to go outside of our relationship and do things like volunteer and help other people. Giving to other people, working in the community, working with shelters, working and in the alcohol and drug community, nothing shut down. We were working consistently. I was considered an essential worker, and I was still working despite having COVID myself, people coming in with COVID, having to wear masks, and the whole nine. So giving to other people was very important. And that enriched our relationship in a lot of ways, because we weren't allowed to just focus on ourselves. but we had to include God and we had to include other people. So those were some of the things that allowed me, and